The biggest problem is not the substance of what the president did last night, although it is going to cause difficulties. The problem is the process. You can't do what he did. You cannot make law last night. That was not an executive order. This was new law. And you can't do that in this country on a unilateral basis. We saw it with health care where we had no Republican buy-in. Now we have no legislative buy-in. You cannot change the big problems. You cannot address the big issues on a unilateral basis. The American public simply will not accept it. And that's what's bothersome to me. I'm interested in immigration reform just like Mr. Pascrell is. I'm not interested in the president doing it by himself.
Congressman, we go back to President Reagan and President Bush. So I made the point earlier. They had attached additional things to legislation. But, and again, it was pretty similar. You know, some of the executive orders that those two Republican presidents, not the same thing?
I don't think they were. What did the president do last night? What did an executive order properly done, and they're proper. A lot of folks will give this president a hard time for the number of executive orders. That's not the key. The key is an executive order properly done? And a properly executive order prioritizes your efforts like prosecutorial discretion. It focuses the efforts of the executive branch. That is legitimate use of the executive authority. Last night, what did the president do? He made law. He said, look, right now the law is that you cannot be here and we have to deport you. Now, the law will be if you do A, B, C, and D, then you can stay and you can work. That is not an executive order. It's flat-out law, and it's what he's not supposed to do.
What do you think, Congressman?
God bless America, Joe. You know, Mickey's a good friend, even though he's on the other side.
Hey, Bill, good morning.
Good morning. The mic wasn't on when you said, we got to get to God bless America.
I mean, he's not only does not know history, I don't think he does know history. He's has selective memory right now. Ronald Reagan, President Reagan, not only had an executive order, he did it after the legislation. You guys and gals have not sent us any legislation. Over 500 days after the Senate, in a bipartisan vote, 68 senators voted for comprehensive health, comprehensive care and reform in the immigration system. This is a compassionate issue. This is an issue dealing with work. Even the chambers of commerce support that we need to do something. The system is broken. And the president simply said for 550 days, send us a bill, send me a bill, we'll take a look at it, let's sit down and get a bill as the Senate did. This was not done in the House of Representatives. And the president did last night what many other presidents have done in the past. And he's even saying now, before this is even implemented, it's time to get us a bill. I think if we sat down, Mick, we could come up with a comprehensive bill, and we would have to compromise. That's part of the American prime. You want to talk about process? That's part of the process, and we should have that. This is a homeland security issue. The government has a right to know who's in this country, and every day we waste, we move away from realizing that fact that the government has that right under the Constitution of the United States. You've tied the president's hands. You did a great job in doing it, and now the time has come for to put up or go home.
Well, you had supermajorities for 2 years, Congressman. So the president's hands were as untied as any president's been in the last 40 years.
He tried to build a consensus. He tried to build a consensus within both parties.
But you could have done it. You could have passed it back then.
And he did it in the Senate, didn't he?
Well, I hate to be cynical,
I mean, he wasn't the only one responsible for that, but he did it.
What I'm worried about, Congressman Mulvaney, is that, I mean, we saw your party had a great night, and you're in a position that Democrats wish they were in. And I just worry that you take this issue and it almost like plays into President Obama's hands to some extent, I think, because you can't. I saw Durbin yesterday, and, you know, he says these aren't criminals, these are children. These aren't gangs, these are families. And I just don't know how the U.S., you know, it's going to be easy to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory in 2016 again. Republicans seem to know how to do that every time, and this might be the issue that suddenly the president looks good again. How can he look good again with what's happening with Obamacare and Gruber and all this stuff, and you're going to make him look good again?
Isn't that exactly what this is about?
I think it is.
This is politics.
In a cynical way, I think it is.
This is not policy.
That doesn't mean it's not going to work, though, because they've done it before and it's worked, this administration.
I think folks at some point see through the politics. They do. Why did we do this last night? Wasn't this an emergency 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago? Wasn't it an emergency, as you mentioned, in 2007? Had the president not read the scripture 2 weeks ago? Sure. Last night was the Latin Grammys.
Hey, Mick, don't talk about politics, will you please?
Okay, oh, good.
Want to talk about politics? That's good. We'll talk about politics. You've had several years to do something to put your own ideas out, just like you do with the APA. Where was the plan? Where's the alternative? Come up with a plan. You and I can talk, Mick, all the time.
Here's the weakness in what Bill's talking about. And he knows this, is that I'm actually one of the Republicans who was interested in doing immigration reform.
Yes,
have been talking to Democrats about a guideline, a way to get to immigration reform as early as January of last year. Then what happened? The president opened up the southwestern border bill in the springtime, and all those discussions broke down. I couldn't talk to Luis Gutierrez anymore. It just simply couldn't happen after the president did that.
Joe, let me tell you something.
Tell me.
We've had a ruse for 5 years, border security. That's baloney. I want to inform the Republicans that there's more than one border in the United States of America. And they're not just Mexicans, hordes coming over the Rio Grande. We're talking about many borders that the United States has. We're talking about Polish immigrants. We're talking about Italian immigrants. We're talking about immigrants from Africa. We're talking about immigrants from Asia. This is what we're talking about, not just Mexicans. In fact, in the last 2 years, we've had a slackening of those who are coming from Mexico trying to come to the United States of America.
Pascrell,
Let's have a comprehensive...
Was Congressman Mulvaney one of the people who would be willing to talk about this?
Yes.
And now that he says was, I'm assuming it's past tense. What do you do at this point?
Well, I don't think...
What the president did last night is temporary.
And the president said that last night. And
correct.
He's waiting
so what do you do to work with people like Congressman Mulvaney?
In the lame duck, let's have a bill that we can put on the president's desk. Even put it on the president's desk in the new Congress in January. That's fine.
What the president did last night was incendiary. It was designed to make those talks break down.
No,
it was. Otherwise, he would have done it before the election.
What your party did for 4 or 5 years is incendiary. Dealing with fears. I mean, are the people who carry the American flag, with those kids coming across the border, are they any more American than you or myself? I don't think so. I wear the flag myself.
Both sides are incendiary, and you know, over the past 5 years, both sides are at fault for a lot of, I think. What part of Jersey are you from? I like
North Jersey.
Huh? North?
This is my district. You're in my district.
You scare me a little. I like the way you got that Jersey. I like it, but
I thought I got a little southern accent in there. I thought it was South Jersey.
You got that southern thing, hospitality going here. This guy, he's on the set with me, so I'm kind of deferring to him a little bit, Congressman.
I'm not Chris Christie. You can talk. I'm not going to tell you to shut up.
There's another guy. Wow. Another guy. That's the Jersey that I'm talking. You're pretty darn close. You're not some shrinking violet. Don't pretend.
I'm civil.
Okay. All right.
We should discuss this in a civil way.
Eye of the beholder. We should discuss it in a civil way, but. You know, we don't have time to discuss Obamacare in a civil way, do we, Congressman?
I will.
You're proud of the way that was carried on?
Much better than it was last year.
That wasn't incendiary? That wasn't one side taking exactly what it wanted to do and forcing it?
No, because if you remember...
37% approval at this point. Because of the stupidity of the American people.
Joe, you always talk about don't worry about the polls. I don't worry about those. A lot of good's coming out of it.
Okay, Bill, happy Thanksgiving if I don't see you.
Yep, you too.
Everybody, good.
God bless.
Thank you for the conversation. That was